Thanks, everyone. I think we're pretty much, I see a bunch of people just starting to get in here, give them a little more time before we get started. But appreciate everybody joining today on, busy holiday month of lots of work and shopping and getting the house ready. So thanks for joining us today. Um, I think I'll give it one more minute. I see a few more. There we go. Okay. So yeah, what I want to do is I want to introduce Ahmed, who is the co-founder and CEO of ScalePost. And Ahmed and I met at Brighton SEO back in a few months ago, and then realized that there's a lot of synergies between our two technologies, and also that we can offer a lot of value for people that are curious and really trying to identify how to see these AI overview visitors and how to improve their AI overview mostly, and get more of that visibility to customers that are using AI to search and ask as opposed to the old traditional way of searching on Google. So, Ahmed, if you don't mind, just give us a quick overview of your background, and then we can get started.
So awesome to be here, Jamie. Thank you for the opportunity, and always enjoy kind of working with you. I'm the co-founder here at ScalePost, and Jamie already kind of covered a lot. We look at ourselves as an AI visibility company, and some of you, and I'd love to know shortly, may have used products around this space or AEO or GEO. Our approach is completely different. We look at your weblogs or a brand's weblogs or a company's weblogs and try and understand where actually every day thousands of millions of times they're actually showing up in answer engines. We have a whole kind of conversion loop from there. When they do click over from that, what happens? So today, especially excited to talk about that side of, which often gets completely ignored in AEO, GEO, which is like, hey, my own data, my own weblogs. And that has secrets to, how you're showing up in AI.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, this is a really very timely topic. I think many people are understanding this more and more now, and allowing more and more resources to help them with this. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jamie Smith, the VP of Growth at SpyFlu and RivalFlow. And basically before that, worked in technology and had an agency for 15 years. So I've been on the agency side, working with lots of different clients and lots of different industries. And then I moved to the technology side, kind of helping agencies and helping in-house marketing teams leverage technology to get better results, both from an analytics perspective and then also from a competitive intelligence and market research perspective. So without further ado, let's get started. One thing I want to remind people to do is definitely stick around till the end, because we're going to be having some very generous Christmas gifts and promotions at the end. So it'd be worth you sticking around if you can. And then we also are going to open up the Q&A. So we want to make this really interactive. We want you to be able to share your website, share your concerns, and then after we present our core presentations, we want to kind of go in and maybe do some live breakdowns of your websites, and analyzing any of your competitors. So to start, I'd like to just ask a quick question. Um, in terms of where is everybody calling in from? I'd love to see, what type of countries and around the world we have people from. Basically, if you don't mind just putting in the chat, which country, or what's, if you're here in the United States, which state are you calling in from, and just kind of see who's local and who's come from the farthest away, and that's always really, really fun. It looks like we got San Francisco in here. That's nice. And and it doesn't look like, can everyone post in here, or is it just only for us? You should be able to make a comment, right?
Yep. I think it's everyone, I think, should be able to do it.
Okay. Well, just if anyone, I want to make sure people can share their locations, because I'm only seeing one comment in here.
Yeah, I think Rosa can just check real quick. I think we should be able to do that, but just checking that right now. My apologies.
Okay.
But everybody still needs their coffee, so I don't know. Um, yeah, I think they should be able to, but I'm just like looking at the settings. I think Jamie, you might be able to do that on the chat on the three dots. There's a setting. It might just to be sure that everybody can chat.
Okay.
If you go to the chat, there's gonna be three dots, and it might give you an option.
It looks like, yeah, there's a people in the waiting room too. So I'm just
Yep,
making
yep,
sure
yep. That
everybody
is a
gets.
setting everybody should be in.
And
Awesome.
then Rosa, could she also accept mentor?
No, I think if you don't mind, I can become the host again just because then Rosa and I can manage that. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, let me just double check.
Okay.
Okay, we have 38 folks in.
Yeah, so there looks like there were some people in the waiting room. So just want to kind of reiterate that we're happy you're here. We're going to cover what you can do with your own data without technology, without buying a product. What can you do with your own first party data, and then how some technology can help you identify your AI overviews, and also what type of AI visibility does your competition have. I'm Jamie Smith. Ahmed, we already gave you, we won't redo it again, but those of you who came in late, we will, this is being recorded and we can send you a copy of the recording if you missed the intros. So what we were asking for earlier is just for people to share where they're calling in from, which country or state are you located? And also, I'm curious, what type of business do you run? Are you an agency? Are you an in-house marketer? Are you an entrepreneur? And what type of business are you running? That would be great to understand, who is attending and what type of business are you here, representing. If you could just put that in the chat, it'd be really great.
Yeah, everybody
Um,
should be able to chat. Throw it in the chat.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then my last question before we get started is, are you currently using any AI tools, any third party AI tools to either measure your AI visibility, to do competitive research, to help you generate helpful content? If you are using any tools, let us know what you're using and if you are using anything currently. Okay, great. All right, well, let's get started with what is helpful content. When we think about AI overviews and showing up in AI overviews, the main driver behind that is being useful and helpful. When you think of the definition of what is helpful content, it's content that's valuable and useful. And that's the most important thing. Like, you can't be salesy with helpful content. You've got to be specific to an audience and meet their needs. The most important thing is that it satisfies the user's curiosity and provides value. It actually answers their questions in an educational manner. A lot of people try to provide helpful content, but they can't help from being salesy. And you really want to try to be educational with this helpful content and let the website do the selling later. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about is that where do I start? When you think about this of being new to this, or as this is new for all of us in terms of a new industry, a new way of analyzing data, a new way of gaining customers and acquiring customers through different channels, where do I start? It can be a bit overwhelming. And what we want to do today is we want to give you some quick wins that you can leave today with and actually go in and actually see some big impact without a lot of effort. And then obviously for those of you who have bigger projects or are more sophisticated marketers, you can certainly lay over a technology product and actually, automate some of this and get to these insights more quickly. In terms of how we work, here's an example of Atlantic Health Partners. They basically buy and sell vaccines to doctors. And this is somebody that asked to participate in the webinar. And they obviously want to show up for doctors and medical groups that are looking to buy vaccines. So when we look at their technical SEO and we audit what they're doing technically, you can see that they have some room for improvement on their mobile optimization. So no matter how much you do from a helpful content perspective, if you aren't rendering quickly and optimized for a mobile experience, the AI engines and the Google search engines are not going to show you. So you've really got to be mobile optimized. So do your technical SEO first. Make sure you're loading really fast, you're mobile optimized, you're mobile friendly, and then go ahead and apply the helpful content to your pages. So in this example, when we look at Atlantic Health Partners, they've got about 1,121 keywords that they're ranking for. But you can see that back in February of 2023, they were ranking for almost 4,000 keywords. So they've taken a little bit of a hit. And when you look at that from a perspective of keyword optimization, why? What happened? And you can see that out of the 1,100 keywords, 279 of them have actually gone down in position. And so that's something that SpyFuel can help you identify and understand, how do I stop the bleeding? The other thing we can see is keywords that are actually moving up. And we want to ride that momentum and continue to double down on those keywords. And then newly ranked keywords that would be visibility that you didn't have previous. So new keywords that you're showing up for terms of what keywords are actually showing up, I like to analyze the most valuable keywords based upon search volume, newly ranked keywords, and keywords that are actually dropping. And so this is where you can see what is happening from a keyword perspective on search. And now we want to look at this kind of same concept, but more on AI visibility. And with AI visibility, you don't get the keyword, you just get where you're referenced, right? So when we look at RivalFlow, now we can say, okay, well, if I'm Atlantic Health Partners and I'm trying to outrank Pfizer for how a vaccine works, why are they outranking me? What helpful content gaps can I close? And that's where RivalFlow can really help you just kind of pinpoint what are the helpful content gaps, specifically questions that they're answering that I'm not, questions that we are both answering, but they're answering more thoroughly, and then basically close the gap and apply additional, more helpful content to improve my visibility. So that's something you can do right away with just SpyFu and RivalFlow. And then the nice part is when you go and say, okay, well, where do I put this new content? We show you where to put it. So we say, here's a recommendation of what section of the page you should put it, and then you can apply that helpful content to the page and start to outrank some of the competitors on search. And by doing this helpful content exercise, you're also improving your AI visibility because that's what they're looking for, helpful, useful content as well. And so once you apply it to the page, you publish, and then you can basically connect your Google Search Console and see what the results were of that helpful content. We also send you results when anything changes in terms of competition, keyword visibility, and so on and so forth. Now, when we talk about where do I start today, what can I do today? Well, when you go into your Google Analytics and look at your acquisition, you can see where did it come from? It come from direct? Was it organic search? Was it organic social? Was it a paid campaign? Was it email? But you don't see if where your traffic came from AI overviews. That's a big gap in your Google Analytics data. So this is what we're trying to share with you today is where you can find that data and what tools you can use to find that data and optimize that data. So with that, I want to hand it over to Ahmed and kind of talk about what we're able to do manually without technology, and then what you could do with ScalePost to really improve this concept of showing up and getting more visibility in the AI searches.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jamie. I'm gonna now share my screen real quick. So I'll take over that. Can everybody, you guys can see my screen, right? So I'll just, what I want to highlight is that we, of course, nobody knows the prompts that are being shared, and that's just the reality of it with answer engines. But what we do is we look at it in a way where you can start with your own weblogs. Every website or most companies we work with, e-commerce, with agencies, with publishers, with at B2B SaaS, you have a CDN, content delivery network, which is a Cloudflare, Fastly, Akamai, something like that, and that holds a lot of secrets to where you're showing up. I'll try and quickly walk through some of the stuff. Generally speaking, we understand that ChatGPT and all these channels have grown aggressively versus Google. You're either visible in the answer or you're not. There's no page two off here, in terms of Google. And so it's a major shift on how people discover your product. And what you see is that we're trying to solve this by trying to just run prompts, and there's many tools like Profound, Peak, and others. We completely have a different approach to that. You can do that and run prompts and see how you show up or where you show up. But what we're looking at is something different, which is when we connect to that CDN, and I'll show you a demo shortly, we actually get actual data on where you get cited in a ChatGPT or Perplexity or all day long, not just in the 30, 40, 50 prompts you're running. So that's what we're doing. Um, Specifically, we look at major answer engines, where you're showing up URL wise, and that's what I want to kind of quickly pop up here. So let me just explain it by what happens here is, I don't run or I don't plan on running, but I just ran this prompt in Perplexity. Best running shoes under 100, something like that. It's very common. You will see an answer, some options, and what happens is a lot of these links are cited here, right? I may or may not click on them, but what happens is they're shown here as part of the answer. And what we do is, for example, if we had our integration, which takes 10 or 15 minutes with Zappos, we would be able to go tell Zappos, hey, Zappos, at this time of day, Perplexity showed this kind of link, and that therein lies um, the answer to what from your own content is really important to AI. And Jamie and these guys are really experts on competition and what's happening there. But we start with here's what's going on within your content, and sometimes that can have clues on competitors and things of that nature, because you could have a comparison page of me versus XYZ other competitor company, and that might be popping up a lot in ChatGPT. You might be saying, here's my pricing versus somebody else, or it might just be a FAQ page that can give you clues, but we tie it all back with, a pretty deep data set and eventually actionable specific recommendations. There's a lot to chew on here, but what I'll do is I'll quickly walk through what that looks like and how powerful your weblogs are, right? This is an actual integration with one of our partners. What we do is when we integrate, from that day onwards, your logs are very rich with data on when a Perplexity bot comes in, when a ChatGPT bot comes in this case, this company has 500 something million requests at the CDN level across just a week, but it's a lot of noise and mess. So our technology tells you, hey, 28 million times, your content was scraped or referenced by all these bots. And I can't stress enough how, unless we look at the CDN a certain way, we're throwing away this data every day. We don't look at it even, right? And it's the biggest cue on where you're showing up in AI. We have details on every single URL. Where does the Google bot go? Where does the ChatGPT user bot go? Which is very different from another bot that just trains on your content, right? Um, I don't know how many folks here work on the SEO or AE or GEO side. Where it gets more exciting when we look at something like this, which is what is called the Search AI module. This becomes very unique where we're looking at only answer engines. So anytime somebody asks a question from one of these platforms and your content shows up, we're like, okay, you showed up 5 point something million times. From that, we can gather a lot of data on click-through rates even. We do integrate with GA because then you can get the full picture. But really, your weblogs are insanely valuable. We just somehow still ignore them. And then, we go very specific to here's the URLs that are working, what you can do to improve, and all that combined with some prompt analytics that you might see a Profound or Peak or the other companies do, which is we feel like a commodity product, just use the cheapest one. We have it as well. We combine the prompts. You need to combine the CDN side and look at the full picture, right? Not just like, here's these prompts I ran. Eventually, the goal is this. Take all that data. Nobody likes to now look at 35 more data points. It's really coming down to this is an example of generation recommendations that are generated. It's like, hey, this is all the data you've got. And here's your weblogs, here's where you're showing up, here's where you're not showing up. This is the kind of prompts where your competition shows up. This leads to specific actionable items on like we need better or more content on XYZ that addresses us versus competition, that talks about our pricing, and that will help us show more in AI. And then you should track and measure that with the other search AI side. Again, this is a very high level overview, of course. Jamie, over to you. I'm more than happy to
Yeah,
kind of
where would people find this data if they didn't use ScalePost? Can they actually just go into their server logs?
I wish more people did that. You can go to your server logs, but what I will tell you is that it will become what you'll get is this 515 million requests, for example, in this case, and only 28 million that is like unique bot visits. And why that's important is so I'll just click this, for example, just as an example, right? When I go to this page as a human, it's beautifully designed. I know what I want. But when an AI bot, a ChatGPT user bot goes here, it loads probably 10 to 50 different things, right? So the weblogs will capture all that. This image is loaded and that thing is loaded, but that doesn't mean if this page is loaded, 50 things are loaded in this page versus 30 things are loaded in another page, doesn't mean that one is more valuable than another. So we condense it down to a unique visit. It was a great question, Jamie, where it's a starting point. It'll directionally tell you something, but really the art and science is like condensing it down to actually actionable data.
Hmm. Yeah, Matt, if you go back to the deck, um, and you go to the one about what's happening in terms of the industry, in terms of the searches there. Yeah, right there. That one above there.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, we slideshow that one.
Yes. So there's yes, it's massive. There's anywhere from 500 is a conservative number. We can find this online. There's six to 700 just ChatGPT users. And I also want to highlight, which again, we didn't get into that much today, where these are very valuable users. They spend more time, they buy more, they're more desktop users. So we also have recently started to focus on why don't we track these folks differently, right? When they do come to the website, they're just getting treated the same as everybody else, right? But they have, kind of more wads of cash because they're bottom of the funnel. They're either ready to take some action, not always, but often. They buy faster, they convert 3 to 6 times higher. Again, there's all these metrics we've got. But the key thing is a large number of users, and it's not just apples to apples. And the average Google user is not the same as the average ChatGPT user. They have, they're paying for it a lot of times. They bottom of the funnel. They're more sophisticated in general. So it's a very large number of very valuable users. And our whole point is like start inside your own weblogs, and then we layer on top with competition and other things to really basically the goal is to get to this audience and solve their problems and improve us versus whoever else we compete with.
Yeah, there was a question about do these bots look at code and schema mostly or only, or what do they look at?
It's a mix and match. It's not always just go to schema. So for example, images are often also loaded, for example, that's fairly common. Headers, footers are often loaded. So that's what we kind of tend to weed out as well. And in our analysis, we often tend to not include sitemap or some other links that are like, for example, contact us is very important, but there's some other miscellaneous stuff that we kind of don't value that much. We really, really care about product pages, anything to do with conversion. And over there, we want to make sure that we don't count like 10 image loads as like 10 different people considering it important. It's a great question.
Hmm. Yeah. And then the next slide, I think, is important to share as well, which is, there is no listing like a Google listing where you could still be in the top 10 or still be sort of visible. It's sort of like you've got one shot to get the click.
Absolutely. And that's what this is data is. Again, I kind of glossed over it because the demo is shows what it is. This is super important to understand that, if you're not scraped or if you're not crawled on, then you're absolutely not visible, right? So we basically want to make sure we scrape more by the right bots. We provide them with more data, more text, more information, whether it's us versus competition, whether it's our pricing, our product. It's a lot. This is all a content thing, right? This is really a content problem in many ways. Like the only way for AI to know what you do is through your content and third-party content.
Hmm.
There's just no other way. They can't pay attention to real world news or whatever. It's just like whatever's available on the internet, mostly on your website also. And it's generally trusts it, right? So you have so many scrapes now, and it's a load on your website, but for the right kind of bots, it means you can show up there a lot.
And do the same concepts apply like technical SEO where the H1 tags are really important and those types of things in terms of technical optimization? If you're doing SEO optimization, you're gonna benefit from AI overview, or do you think there's completely different strategy?
I don't think it's different. I mean, the industry has different thoughts. We really think good SEO hygiene is the table stakes. Like there's no way around that. And then I would look at it this way, right? You can do your SEO and everything, um, but your audience on Meta, for example, or might care about different things. Look at ChatGPT or Perplexity like as another channel, and let's try and also optimize for that. It's not either or. A lot, I would say 70-80% is similar stuff, but we should then go to the logs and say the messaging I'll tell you is that what's important to the average ChatGPT user versus what's important to Google impressions, they're very different. So let's pay attention to that and say, oh, actually, ChatGPT, our top three things are these three products, or they keep going to our so and so product pages versus that's like number 8 on Google. Right? So knowing that is so important, then you can address it with some on-page stuff. Other times it could be something as simple as like, doing more content of the same, like refreshing it, addressing it. The recommendation side will cover it, but it's a great question, Jamie, and good to go deep there.
And does only on-page factors matter, or is some of those factors from an SEO perspective would be like domain strength and links, for example. Do those play a role in AI visibility?
Absolutely does, but it's a little bit different in terms of we're not just looking at here's a bunch of backlinks, right? Like the LLMs generally value um, Reddit. We've heard about this a lot. Reddit, Wikipedia, YouTube is vastly underrated. Like we'll see that that's valuable. What we do is we look at here's the top 50 things that are popular for me on my website. And that's what you should be doing. Like, hey, what does show up in AI? What if we're just focusing on certain SKUs, but they're like not even a priority to users in ChatGPT? We get our priorities right, and we're like, okay, these products are important to these folks. How can I improve my conversions there? And that could also mean then that's where the prompt analytics comes in. We didn't go too much into that, where you can run a bunch of prompts. We suggest that instead of blindly running prompts, we should look at this logs and see these things are important to these people. Let me run prompts around these topics and see how I show up, how my competition shows up, what other sources help me. Is it YouTube? Is it Wikipedia? Is it Tom's Guide? Is it some enterprise blog? So that those will have really solid answers for you.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. Traditional SEO, when we think about prioritization, we think about what does the customer or, the ideal customer search for when they're looking for the problem that we solve. And we look at that and we say, okay, here are the keywords that we need to have visibility for. And then we prioritize those keywords typically by search volume. So the higher the search volume, the more emphasis that keyword should get because it could potentially bring in more traffic. But then you start realizing that that traffic is too top of funnel and may not convert. So maybe we want a little longer tail keyword where they're more further along in the buying cycle and actually ready to buy. So all those things that apply from an SEO perspective are very similar from an AI overview. It's just instead of it being a keyword, it's actually a mention, right?
Yes, that's right. It's a mention, absolutely. And that's well, only the AI companies knows the actual mention every time. But if you're cited as a source, that is very high value, which is 90% of my take whole point of this is please pay attention to your weblogs, and that will unlock secrets on what is important to the other side. And again, we still don't know the prompt, not yet. Maybe OpenAI tomorrow says, hey, here you go, you can share prompts. We actually work very closely with Perplexity on this. They're one of our earliest partners. Turns out it's near impossible to share prompts or anything around that, right? I wouldn't my prompts to be shared with anybody, right? And it's just not like, you're working, you're doing this and that. It's not possible. The best next proxy is my links are showing up. And that is the best part of that is you'll almost always be see that the top 50 links from important to AI are very different from the top 15 like Search Console or otherwise.
hmm I had a question come in terms of the social impact. Is there any indicators in terms of your followers on YouTube that would impact your AI visibility?
Yeah, it could be, it could not be really because the LLMs are constantly changing their algorithms. Broadly speaking, we have seen that YouTube is just a very important channel. I would also say it's a more complicated question of indexing. Like, it's a follower count. Some YouTube accounts could get really cheap, massive followers, and they may be not relevant. But if you're maybe indexing YouTube a certain way, which means you're indexing Google a certain way and you're showing up, I don't have data or I don't have an exact correlation, but certainly quality is usually preferred, and LLMs are really good at that in general, getting quality sources. That's their whole job, if you think about it, right? To do that on your behalf. They're like, we can go on your behalf and you don't have to look at 10 blue links. We'll figure all that stuff out for you. Otherwise, why would we be using them? Yes, they're still horrible with hallucinations and stuff, but I say this ChatGPT or Perplexity is like the new word of mouth. And the word of mouth could be your idiot friend who has no idea what they're saying, but they're your friend, and then you kind of like them and you trust it. Or it could be like some super smart person and they're your friend and you trust it, right? So this still has the hallucination problem, but I would say that follower count, I don't have any data, but it's more quality centered. That's what I would focus on. If you are doing partnerships, then look at, more quality. Of course, somebody can have 10 views. There's no point, I guess.
Yeah, someone asked a really good question on, ScalePost, actually, your product. So they're in the enterprise space, and their customers often are constrained in terms of they have to use Copilot or Microsoft, due to, what enterprises are built on. They're behind these firewalls. So can these tools analyze data pulled from kind of the integrated Microsoft AI tools?
So we have, I don't think so. What I can tell you is, what I'll show you is have, sorry, my screen's getting stuck, I think. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a list of 1,500 bots, crawlers, scrapers, which list down. And again, Microsoft is unique because Microsoft also has Bing, its own index. So it may or may not be going. Google and Microsoft both do that. Right? They don't. Google is notorious for that actually, but they don't go out to the web and kind of real time. They'll use their own index. So Microsoft may not be, but for example, for ChatGPT, as an example, for GPT, we have one, two, three, four different kinds of bots that do different things. So we know that really well. Google, Microsoft, it's very small amounts that we can actually pick up. So it's not where we're like, hey, we can cover most of the ground here.
Someone was asking a good question here. In RivalFlow, we'll give you kind of a specific content gap analysis of what specific questions is a competitor answering that you're not, and actually give you kind of here's some new generated content to go ahead and apply. In ScalePost, they're asking, what action, how you have some suggested actions to take?
Yeah.
What specifically are those actions, for example, I guess is the question.
Yes, a great question, and I'll pull that up because it's easier to show. So what we will do is we will
Can you
take.
zoom in a little bit? It's hard to read
Yes,
the
it's
small
very
text.
because it's so intense. So this is an example from a publisher, for example, right? And depends on your objectives and goals. We will monitor data for a few weeks on where your content actually shows up. Then we will also do what some of you may have used these companies like Profound Peak or whatever, where you do prompt analytics. We also have that part where you can run prompts and see where you show up versus competition. We'll take all that data and give you specific recommendations on what you can do based on your goals, essentially, right? So, for example, it could look like, optimize this type of content. I mean, this is a dummy for like time.com is one of our earliest partners and customers, as an example, performs well on this. You have 78% mention rate. You're missing this much. Again, we don't have to read everything, but it gives you here's the impact we expect, here's the actionable steps, and here's what you can do to address that, right? Of course, we don't have that granular information on competition like Jamie does. Someday, maybe we'll combine forces on that. But this is really around AI visibility, specifically your impressions in AI, based on your click-throughs from AI, based on how we run prompts and how we and competition and YouTube and Wikipedia shows up, and your objectives. You'll see, again, I can go on and on. For example, here, authoritative video and educational platforms. We saw that there's a lot of citations in YouTube and Wikipedia. Here's this, and we can go pretty deep into even which specific channels you should contact, right, that are helping you show up.
Mhm. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so I think, did you want to go back to the deck? Is there anything else you wanted to dig into on the demo before we get it real interactive here and go kind of a Q&A?
I think this is, again, we have a pretty deep product here, and we've covered, some of those things. And I think Q&A would always be awesome. We can always go deeper if there's more question. I think we've covered pretty much. Really, the messaging is that we, not necessarily just us, but generally paying attention to web logs and URL level visibility. And I want to highlight when we do connect, we understand. I'll pull up actually. That might help. We understand every single URL on the website, and we know. Of course, I can't show you here. It's an actual demo. Every single URL, how many times it got cited, the click-through rates. We get into what is it in the URL. Is it? I mean, in this case, this is the publishers. It's politics, entertainment, whatever. So you want to clearly understand what's important to users in AI, and how does that compare to other things. That's really, but this is where the fun part is, like every single URL, knowing what it is and seeing like, okay, this is important to AI people, this is important to people in generally Google search, and look at the differences here, right? I can almost, again, I don't know, of course, most of you, but I can almost guarantee you the stuff that's important to people in AI will be quite different from what's important to the regular Google site. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Jamie, open it up. I can stop my screen share, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is really helpful because we can take it so far from an SEO perspective, but when you get the click-through rates on AI and specifically at each page, that's a really nice report because I think, with search, you have a certain click-through rate, but it's much lower in search because you're surrounded by competition and multiple options. In AI, you're pretty much the featured link and you get, much higher. What is the average click-through rate on the overviews versus, I know search is a much smaller.
So, for example, here, right, this shows wild numbers because, for example, we pick up Siri, we pick up Alexa, but it varies. And also, it's very interesting. I mean, now we're getting very into the weeds, but for example, Cloud doesn't like to go to your website a lot. It'll go a few times and just save it on their side. So they don't need to visit the website every time. So the click-through rates seem very high. So there's all this data again, this is all thanks to weblogs. And that's what, we can provide very specific things on like, hey, your click-through rates overall are like this, right? Here's how much time people are spending and this and that. All this has cues. But as I said, I'm tired of more dashboards. Eventually, it's like, here's plain English recommendations that this does for me, which is really, we started that even day one, like let's start with recommendations versus like a bunch of data, which is I love about RivalFlow, where it's like here's specific things I can do.
Mhm. And once we take the scale post recommendations and implement them, how do we measure the effectiveness of those tactics?
That is again all thanks to weblogs. Right now, what people are doing is they'll run prompts, and then when they make some change on prompt analytics on Peak or Profound or whatever, they'll then just see within their own small experiment if the citations are going up or not. Why don't we just make the change and then track that URL and see if it gets cited more or not, clicked more or not. So we are essentially an attribution and measurement play, right? Which is really important to understand, all based on weblogs, which is everybody's got sitting around. So that would be this specifically will tell you, like, if that change has gotten you more cited or not. That's the only ground truth way to measure it, basically.
So when you implement those changes, you would kind of timestamp it and then
Yep.
try to identify the before and after. Was my visibility improved? Was my click-through rate improved?
That's right. And you can,
Okay.
you can look through by the URL and, there's all that, kind of stuff. And again, the recommendation and they will also pick that up in general.
Can I
Hey,
change the date range in this data of scale post?
yeah, yeah, absolutely, anytime.
And then another question was if someone wanted to use ScalePost, how would they install it or get it up and running? For example, they have clients on WordPress and then they have clients on
Yeah.
Squarespace. You might have clients on Wix, for example.
Yeah.
Like, what is the installation or onboarding process to get data?
So there's two modules. One, the answer analytics, which doesn't need any integration, where you can run prompts, and that's the product that you'll find in the market. Everybody's doing that. For this one, if that website has a CDN, WordPress we integrate with right away. We can just push the logs. The real thing is you're pushing logs to us. It could be an Amazon S3 bucket, could be something custom. So WordPress is not a problem. We work with WordPress VIP, WordPress. You just push the logs to us. If Squarespace, it depends on the setup. Sometimes people still have Cloudflare or something else. Sometimes they don't. It really is. We have documentation for each of these platforms. It's very straightforward. If not, somebody on the tech team can be like. Sometimes people have very custom, unique setups. But we have some of the world's largest websites. We have some of the smallest e-commerce stores. We have all sorts of stuff. Integrating only sometimes Shopify can be a little bit tricky, but it's something we can look at very quickly if it's not, like our regular integration.
So they would be installing ScalePost, or how would you get access to our
I
server?
see. So you would basically not install it as such. So it runs on the web. You would simply connect the web logs of your client and just push those logs to us. And this is all based on those web logs. And every day at midnight we'll get those logs and then we can analyze them and show you like here's what was happening as of yesterday. So it's a simple log push feature, very low, easy compliance. It has never taken anybody more than 10 or 15 minutes to do that integration. There's
And
no
then to
code
do
that
this without ScalePost, you'd have to write your own queries of those web logs, basically.
you would have to write your own queries. You would have to spend a year doing what we did with like a big team. So if you want to do that, I'm more than happy to guide you. But it'll take a while.
Right. Good. Yeah. And then we're coming up on the last 15 minutes. A walkthrough of getting weblogs for those platforms.
So
Sort of like
yeah,
people are interested in actually technically how do they actually share those weblogs, but I think that's something we can take offline.
yeah. It's like documentation section. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
And then if anyone wants to participate and share a website or a competitor, I'm happy to do some live analysis now. And then we also are going to end with a bit of a promotion. So I think if anyone else has any more questions or wants us to do a live example with their website, feel free to put it in the chat. And then um, uh, let's see, here's one here. Got somebody participating. Great. Thank you. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of websites here that people are wanting to share. So I'll start with RivalFlow and SpyFlow reviews, and then I know we can't get access to their logs in real time right now and show them what's happening in ScalePost, but at least we can give
Yep.
some examples of what would happen, how there's correlation between the two technologies. One of the suggestions here that somebody gave was getgeofencing.com, which is obviously like geofencing campaigns, hyper local on a mobile. In order to use Rival Flow, people on this call most likely have participated in these webinars before, but basically we need your website, your location, and then your competitors. And competitors, in terms of Rival Flow, they're defined by keyword overlap. So competitors that are ranking for the same keywords as you would be considered our competitor. Now, they may be an indirect competitor, not a direct competitor, but they have a search engine competitive nature. So while this runs, I'm going to run the same thing in SpyFu for get geofencing. And sorry. Ah. Okay, so 161 keywords are ranking organically on getgeofencing.com. It looks like there was an issue here recently. Let me see on the overview here. Yeah, it looks like something happened in July and by August, I don't know if you changed, launched a new website, but you definitely had sort of, 1,200, 1,400 keyword visibility, and now we're down to 200. So this is definitely something to look into here back in August of this year. Um, what may have happened. But in terms of geofencing pricing, here's, you're ranking 29 and you've got this groundtruth.com is ranking 2. Google Ads geofencing is another good keyword that you're ranking 65 for. So we could basically generate content here, do a content gap analysis, apply this content to this Google geofencing page and improve your visibility on search. But in doing that, you're also letting the AI bots prove that you're also more helpful and being more useful than previous. If I generate this one, this is a pretty good keyword here. White labeling, geofencing, geofencing Michigan, Las Vegas geofencing. So a lot of white labeling and specific markets. Real estate, I bet you that must be really popular. Geofencing sort of real estate opportunities. But yeah, this is something that, from this perspective, a lot of this is overlapping. As you're producing helpful content to show up in search, you're improving your chances to show up in AI overview as well.
Yep.
Let's see if there's any other participants here. All right, here we go. People are starting to share. Uh, oh, he okay. So the guy that was part of the geofencing said they did get hacked back in August, July. So yeah, that makes sense why there was a big drop there. Let's see, we got another one here. Skincare, motor pot. Um, let's see. Let's try this one here. And I think with because people are probably wanting to move on, maybe we should do the promotion, and then those of you who want to stay and continue to kind of do some one-on-one deep dives, we can do that. Um, for Rival Flow and SpyFu, what we're offering today as a thank you is that you can basically, let me share my screen. So today I'm happy to announce that you can get RivalFlow by attending this webinar. All you have to do is inside of RivalFlow, and you can live chat right here with our team. And if you put in their Jamie webinar, they will tag your account and discount it. And so what we will do is we're going to give you the pro package for the starter price. So if you're considering month to month, you can get the pro package for the starter price or the elite package for the pro price. So basically, we're giving you the next package up for the previous package's price. And if you're interested in SpyFu, reach out to me directly, and we'll apply that same discount over at SpyFu. And I think, Ahmed, you're going to do a similar promotion today for those of you who want to try ScalePost.
Yes, so I can just share my screen real quick because then we can just cover that. Absolutely same thing, inspired by Jamie, the man himself. To do, we have a few tiers. The basic one, again, if you join, use that. We'll certainly upgrade you to the starter. And if you use starter, we would, for at least 3 more months, we'd love to move you to enterprise. Enterprise is very rich, very detailed, usually suited for a little bit larger websites. We would be happy to do that. And how to do that is please, feel free to email me directly, or if you log in, basically if you log in right now, we'll know that this is from the this podcast, this sorry webinar. I'm just stating my email. It's ahmed@scalepost.ai. You can shoot me a note, and I'd be happy to kind of get you onboarded.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so for those people who already have a SpyFu account or already are a customer, we'll see what we could do. I'll talk to the boss, Mike Roberts, who's the CEO and founder, but we'll see what we could do. We can certainly try to find something. We're in a very giving holiday spirit, so you caught us at a really good time for discounts. So hopefully we'll make it worth your time. If you decide to use one of these technologies, you can email Ahmed or myself. And then we will go ahead and apply the discount on SpyFu if I get it approved.
Awesome.
Wonderful. So if you were to give everyone one thing to do today, Ahmed, if they were to leave here, what would you say is the most important thing for them to do? I talk about technical SEO, as much as this helpful content may help you show up, if you're not rendering fast on a mobile, you're not mobile optimized, the helpful content is not going to be as impactful. So I think from my perspective, make sure you address your technical website issues or technical mobile rendering issues first. And Google offers that free tool under the developer tool, the website speed tester. It's a great free tool. And the best part about that tool is that it will show you specifically, what you can improve. And then after that, then you can go into optimizing your actual content. So a lot of people jump in and they just do content optimization. They're struggling to load mobily, and it never really affects them. Versus if you address technical issues first, then apply the helpful content, you're going to see much more results in a much speedier manner. What would you recommend, Ahmed?
I would again sound like a broken record. This is one of the most valuable channels right now. Answer engine, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and they play a very different game. They care about different things. To us, the most valuable data is actually sitting with you or your clients themselves in form of weblogs. So let's pay attention to that, and then the whole stack on top of that can solve your problems in terms of better tracking of referrers. Even we didn't talk about it much, but uh, even GA misses a lot of AI referred traffic, and it's so valuable. So better referrers, better outcomes, helping with content like do XYZ to improve visibility, but really look within your own weblogs, carry a lot of the secrets, and of course, we can help unlock that in a certain way. That's my take.
Yeah, we have one more question, and it was about Google Search Console. How do we value that Google Search Console data? For RivalFlow, we rely on it heavily because that's how we measure the before and after of the implementation of the helpful content. So we timestamp when you publish the new content, and then we show you your impressions for that page, clicks for that page, keyword visibility for that page before and after implementing the suggestion. So that's a really good question. Do you guys use that as well?
So we look at it. Of course, we often get caught like the Google Search Console for AI. We don't know the prompts naturally, but we recommend and we also look at it from when you are we have the Search AI module that does the CDN integration. Then we have the Answer Analytics where you can run prompts and see how you show up. In that, we highly recommend looking at your Search Console and seeing what keywords are working in general search, and then we can convert those to prompts and see what your visibility is. But then that all is diagnosis. That all needs to tie back to the blogs as well. So we do consider GCSE very important, and that gives us more sense of like we can tell you what's important to AI users. Google tells us what's important to Google, and then there's a lot of overlap as well. So if you wanna just run prompts without other data, we highly recommend looking at top 10, 50, 20, 50, maybe 100 even GSC keywords that are working, and then the job for us is to convert those to prompts and then track how you're performing there.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think the other question, I'll just share my screen because it's easier to see than talk. But yeah, when you talk about Google Search Console data in RivalFlow, you authorize us to connect to your Google Search Console, so you'll see page by page when I implemented the suggested changes, how did that impact my keyword visibility, my impressions, and my clicks. And so that data that we pull in is third party. It's coming from Google Search Console, so we can't manipulate it. It's basically proving that it either worked or didn't work. So we'll timestamp when you published, and then we can show, did the page lift in impressions? How many keywords? Before we implemented, we had about 328 keywords ranking on this page. Now we have 768 keywords ranking, and our clicks also improved as well. So this was a success. Now, does it always happen? No, but I could also see the individual keywords. How were the individual keywords affected by this helpful content? So that's really important to measure the effectiveness to make sure you nailed it in terms of implementing helpful content. And then this same concept in ScalePost, it's kind of the same thing. It's just sort of like, okay, am I getting more mentions with the additional helpful content that I'm applying to these pages?
Right. That's right.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much out of time, but this was very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Ahmed.
Thank you so much again for having me, and I appreciate everybody's thoughtful questions. What a pleasure and honor to be here. Again, Jamie, thanks for the opportunity. Excited for any follow-ups, any questions. We're around.
Yeah, we do have this recorded, so basically we will. We will be able to email you a copy of the recording if you're interested. And I had a few people in here wanting some one-on-one demos and one-on-one sort of hand-holding on how to do this. So Ahmed's email's in the chat, my email's in the chat. Shoot us an email if you're interested in a one-on-one. We'll set up a Zoom and we can make sure it's a fit for you or see how far you can take it for your own scenario, whether you're an agency or an in-house marketer. But thanks everyone. Have an absolutely
Thank you.
fabulous holiday season. Whatever holiday you're celebrating, may it be blessed for you and your family. And we'll talk to you in 2026.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. I think we're pretty much, I see a bunch of people just starting to get in here, give them a little more time before we get started. But appreciate everybody joining today on, busy holiday month of lots of work and shopping and getting the house ready. So thanks for joining us today. Um, I think I'll give it one more minute. I see a few more. There we go. Okay. So yeah, what I want to do is I want to introduce Ahmed, who is the co-founder and CEO of ScalePost. And Ahmed and I met at Brighton SEO back in a few months ago, and then realized that there's a lot of synergies between our two technologies, and also that we can offer a lot of value for people that are curious and really trying to identify how to see these AI overview visitors and how to improve their AI overview mostly, and get more of that visibility to customers that are using AI to search and ask as opposed to the old traditional way of searching on Google. So, Ahmed, if you don't mind, just give us a quick overview of your background, and then we can get started.
So awesome to be here, Jamie. Thank you for the opportunity, and always enjoy kind of working with you. I'm the co-founders here at ScalePost, and Jamie already kind of covered a lot. Look at ourselves as an AI visibility company, and some of you, and I'd love to know shortly, may have used products around this space or AEO or GEO. Our approach is completely different. We look at your weblogs or a brand's weblogs or a company's weblogs and try and understand where actually every day thousands of millions of times they're actually showing up in answer engines. We have a whole kind of conversion loop from there. When they do click over from that, what happens? So today, especially excited to talk about that side of, which often gets completely ignored in AEO, GEO, which is like, hey, my own data, my own weblogs, and that has secrets to, how you're showing up in AI.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, this is a really very timely topic. I think many people are understanding this more and more now and allowing more and more resources to help them with this. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jamie Smith, the VP of Growth at SpyFlu and RivalFlow. And basically before that, worked in technology and had an agency for 15 years. So I've been on the agency side working with lots of different clients in lots of different industries. And then I moved to the technology side, kind of helping agencies and helping in-house marketing teams leverage technology to get better results, both from an analytics perspective and then also from a competitive intelligence and market research perspective. So without further ado, let's get started. One thing I want to remind people to do is definitely stick around till the end because we're going to be having some very generous Christmas gifts and promotions at the end. So it'd be worth you sticking around if you can. And then we also are going to open up the Q&A. So we want to make this really interactive. We want you to be able to share your website, share your concerns, and then after we present our core presentations, we want to kind of go in and maybe do some live breakdowns of your websites and analyzing any of your competitors. So to start, I'd like to just ask a quick question. Um, in terms of where is everybody calling in from? I'd love to see, what type of countries and around the world we have people from. Basically, if you don't mind just putting in the chat, which country or what's if you're here in the United States, which state are you calling in from, and just kind of see who's local and who's come from the farthest away, and that's always really really fun. It looks like we got San Francisco in here. That's nice. And and it doesn't look like, can everyone post in here or is it just only for us? You should be able to make a comment, right?
Yeah. I guess everyone, I think, should be able to do it.
Okay. Well, just if anyone, I want to make sure people can.